there I was, barbecue sauce on my titties, and then Extra Credits just released the new video. Literally just chilling on my phone right now, and yeah, I saw that this came out, so let's watch this. I'm down to watch something to take my mind off World War III that's currently happening. Speaking of, in light of recent events in Ukraine and whatnot, in the unlikely possibility that I'm conscripted into the British Army. It's been a good run, guys. They probably won't let me keep a YouTube channel and chat all this shit. So to my 6 followers, beijinhos, I love you. And yeah, we had a good run. Because of that, fuck it, the world's probably gonna end. This is a slanket. It's the ugliest thing I've ever received as a gift, and I fucking love it. Especially good on these cold winters, well, end of February nights. So, where's my tea? Here we go. Right. Empire of Brazil. Oh my god, that went around the wrong hole. Oh, sorry, that's really nasty to listen to. Right, Breaking Bonds, Extra History, Episode 5, Empire of Brazil series. Breaking Bonds, I don't know what that refers to. Oh, slavery. Right, because where we left off last time, Pedro II had come to the throne, and he'd commissioned like a lot of I don't know what's called, like cultural, like increasing the cultural power and the feeling of like a shared background to unite all the various groups that made up Brazil, even though there was a lot of like, well, obviously slavery, but also the indigenous population had no representation in government. And I think they said, I'm not sure if it was the last episode or the one before, but 15% of the population could vote. Pretty good, but, you know, a lot of people in slavery as well. Is that very democratic? But where we left off last time, they're going to be invading Paraguay, I'm pretty sure. I don't really know what happened, because Uruguay's independent now, and it's not a part of Argentina, Rio de la Plata. So I'm pretty sure they're talking about the Paraguayan War. Sorry, it's been like a week since I watched the last one. Yeah, and I don't know much about this war, apart from stuff that I heard when I was younger, and like just from years ago when I'd read about it, and like it killed a lot of people in Paraguay. So I don't know if it's still a point of contention diplomatically between the two countries. But yeah, anyway, let's watch this and see what happens.
Philadelphia, May 10th, 1876. It's finally here, the opening day of the Centennial Exposition. Celebrating the 100th anniversary of U.S. independence, this is the first World's Fair held on the American continent. And in front of the crowd stands a behemoth symbol of the modern age, a coreless steam engine to power the exposition hall's wondrous machines. Then, 2 men step forward to stoke the huge double cylinders to life. The first is President Ulysses S. Grant, leader of the hemisphere's first republic, and the other is Emperor Pedro II, the only monarch in the Americas. Prosperous and stable, Brazil has gained international respect as a second great American power. It recently arbitrated a dispute between the US and UK, and its pavilion is among the grandest at this event. The 2 men throw the switches, the engine chugs to life, and the Philadelphia crowd erupts with applause. But back home in Brazil, people are no longer cheering for Pedro II.
Very interesting. Also, we're less than a minute in, and you're telling me there's ads. This is a joke. Yeah, okay. Quite surprised that it's America and, well, the USA and Brazil standing up on the stage for the World Fair. To be honest, I thought it might be Argentina, because I know Argentina had a similar standard of living to like France, but then again, so does Brazil at this time period. Interesting, very interesting. Let's keep watching. Let's watch 5 seconds of adverts.
How does HelloFresh keep food cold and fresh? I wanted the same thing before I got my first box. First of all,
Thanks so much to Fabulous for helping us present today's historical tale. We last left the Empire of Brazil in 1865, a time when its power was unquestioned. It was economically strong, politically secure, building...
Oh, God. End of the American Civil War, 1865. This is before Germany was Germany and Prussia was, kind of fucking shit up. I think they'd invaded Denmark by now, Schleswig-Holstein. I think this is 1 year before the Brothers' War between Prussia and Austria. What else is going on in the 1860s? You've got the Qing dynasty in China, who are just so unstable. This is the era of the warlords and Western powers, like controlling parts of China and stuff. I think this is just after Russia gains the Russian Far East region where like Vladivostok is. But I think it was called like Huaoshenwai or something. I wonder what South America's borders look like at this time.
Infrastructure, producing art, and taking gradual steps toward the politically secure, built a time when its power was unquestioned. It was economically strong, politically secure, building infrastructure, producing art, and taking gradual steps toward the abolition of slavery. And this is how people of today often remember the empire, as a bastion of order in the chaotic world of 19th century South American republics. However, by now you've probably realized how illusionary...
That's Squidward's face from SpongeBob, when he gets like really buff. Good meme.
That outward strength was. Brazil's many fault lines, from slavery to questions about political centralization and the legitimacy of the monarchy, hadn't been solved. They'd just calmed down. But a big event was about to bring them to the forefront. Brazil possessed the largest calmed down. But a big event was about to bring them to the monarchy. Hadn't...
What is this? Questions over slavery, whether the government's too centralised, because obviously Brazil's a federal republic. Was it a federal republic? Federal monarchy? I don't know, that's weird. And yeah, obviously how legitimate is an unelected hereditary monarch or emperor. But then again, I'm British, so, fuck it, whatever, let them stay.
Hadn't been solved. They'd just calmed down. But a big event was about to bring them to the forefront. Brazil possessed the largest army in South America, and during Pedro's reign, it had been successful in 2 regional wars, toppling an unfriendly Argentine dictator in 1851 and intervening in Uruguay's civil war in 1864. It even triumphed in a diplomatic standoff with Britain. All victories that came quickly and easily. But due to Brazil's intervention in Uruguay, tensions flared with neighboring Paraguay. Now, the Paraguayan War is complex, and its causes are disputed, but to put it in very simple terms, it was a war over river access and disputed territorial claims dating back to colonial times. And, after a diplomatic impasse, the much smaller Paraguay attacked Brazil. Forming a triple alliance with Argentina and Uruguay, Brazil felt confident it would secure victory within months. Instead, it took 3 years to destroy Paraguay's conventional military and sack its capital. Even then, fighting continued for 2 more years in a relentless guerrilla conflict that became the bloodiest war ever fought in South America. Paraguay lost a large percentage of its population, how much exactly is still hotly debated, and Brazil lost around 50,000 soldiers, including whole military units. The violence was astounding. During those 5 years,
Sorry, I'm just going to pause it here because that is... I didn't realise that Paraguay attacked Brazil first, to be honest. Jesus. Fuck me. Sorry, I'm just eating Milka. Best type of chocolate. Cadbury's and Galaxy got nothing on Milka. I'm just going to go back and rewatch that last part, but that is... It took 3 years. Because with all due respect to the Paraguayans, Paraguay's a really small country and like... It's not really got a lot of like mountain and stuff. Although I suppose it is. What do you call it? Las Pampas, like the plains. It's very like Campo Grande, As Cejas. I don't know. I literally can't remember. But like the geography's different. Like very flat and like sparse. That's mad. I can't believe. It's just, I mean, I already knew that, heard of this war a little bit and that it was going to be bad, but
fought in South America. Paraguay lost a large percentage of its population, how much exactly is still hotly debated, and Brazil lost around 50,000 soldiers, including whole military units. The violence was astounding. During those 5 years, the Brazilian government found it could do nothing but manage the war. Domestic issues fell by the wayside, and the war started to change whatever it touched. Some of these changes were positives for the government. The Paraguayan War whipped up the sort of unifying nationalism that Pedro II had worked hard to foster, making several of its generals and officers patriotic heroes. But there was a downside to that. For instance, previously, Pedro had been the unifying national figure. Heck, the green and yellow of the national flag were Braganza colors. Now, he had competition. Not to mention, the war brought the army into the center of government and public life in a new way. Before, it was just a thing called up and used in conflicts, but now it was a respected institution. Yet the biggest impact was on slavery. See, a few years into the war, the government was so desperate for troops that it started drafting men into service. But rich men could send a slave instead. And since only free men could join the army, any slave fighting in the war was legally freed. In fact, by the end of the war, the empire was flat out impressing slaves into the military and paying their owners compensation. And these newly freed soldiers were no longer fighting in segregated all-black units, but in a radically integrated army that was largely people.
Are you kidding me? Even in World War II, America still had mixed units. And, like, I don't really know about Britain. I know that obviously there are a lot of colonial troops from Commonwealth troops from all around the Commonwealth. Sorry, that was really gross. Oh, that smelled like caramel. What was I saying? Yeah, anyway. Yeah, even during like World War One and World War Two, I remember especially during World War One when America joined the war, they sent the black regiments and mostly to France, I think, for the French military to like manage. It's mad. Damn. God, that is really... I mean, I suppose in a way it is kind of good. I'm just going to make myself a bit bigger. I suppose in a way it is kind of good that, you know, but it's not good when you're being impressed into the army. Impressed, yeah. When you're being put into the army. Obviously, if you're, you know, a slave, then you're not really going to be able to consent that much. If the government, yeah, like, what did they, wait, let me go back. Did they say it was voluntary? Definitely for the owners. The owners could be like, oh yeah.
In segregated paying by the men could join the army. Any slave fighting in the war was legally freed. In fact, by the end of the war, the empire was flat out.
Yeah, he doesn't look like he's just signed up for a war. Just like those poor Russian soldiers. Well, poor Russian soldiers, fuck them. But those poor boys that you see in the news that have been captured in Ukraine who don't really look like, you know, they want to be fighting some dirty war. Which is probably the, you know, it's the same thing here. Like, oh, what dumb reason to have a war. But then again, this is the 1800s, so, you know. Although South America is very peaceful in terms of conflicts between nations.
Impressing slaves into the military and paying their owners compensation. And these newly freed soldiers were no longer fighting in segregated all-black units, but in a radically integrated army that was largely people of color. This lit a fire under Brazil's abolition movement. After all, these men were heroes of the empire, and when the war ended in an alliance victory in 1870, they returned to a country where their families were still shackled and whipped, where they were in danger of being re-enslaved, and where they couldn't vote because they weren't born free. This was unacceptable to much of the public, including white Brazilians who'd served alongside freedmen in their ranks. It also came as the economics of slavery were shifting, with the largest number of slaves being centered in the southern coffee-producing regions rather than being more equally distributed. Yet the Brazilian legislature slow-walked it. In 1871, they passed the Free Womb Law, freeing all children born to enslaved women. In 1884 came a law freeing enslaved people over the age of 60, though many did not live that long. And though Pedro said he was privately an abolitionist, he consistently refused to use his power to do anything to support abolition. In fact, he mostly wasn't even there.
1 sec, I just got to take this. Hey. Sorry, I just had to unload some washing in the car. As you can see, I am now slanketed up. Sleeves, blanket, slanket, you get it? Anyway, so, back to where we were. Sorry, all I can think about is that IKEA stuff now. Fuck's sake. Right. Action. Right, so Pedro has said, yeah, I support abolition. I'm about it. I don't reason. But then he's done nothing. He's done nothing, even though he's technically like the head of the government, so he could have done something. I don't buy it. I think it's all a ruse. Let's keep watching and find out who's really right. I'm going to make this a bit smaller because I like being able to see the whole thing.
Because Pedro had caught the travel bug. When the law of free birth had been ratified, he'd been touring Europe and North America, ostensibly to see his daughter's grave in Germany, but with plenty of recreational trips tacked on. In 1876, he went to the Centennial Exposition, then onto both coasts of the USA, Canada, Northern Europe, Russia, the Mediterranean, the Ottoman Empire, the Middle East, then Europe again. He was gone a year and a half. Now, these trips went down great in the places he visited, but not so at home. Because remember, the 1824 Constitution made the emperor no mere figurehead, but a sort of presidential monarch, meaning he had duties. But Pedro II had always resented being emperor, and now that he saw the world that he'd missed out on as a result, he was even angrier. He also only had daughters, and though the Constitution said women could inherit the throne, he believed that the country wouldn't accept a queen. The institution was, in his mind, doomed. So he just stopped caring. Before, he'd been studious about his ceremony.
Hold on, because that really surprises me. Because Brazil, at least Brazil in the modern day, I don't know if they've had more than one female president, but I definitely remember Rousseff, Gilma Rousseff. I don't know how you pronounce it. Gilma Rousseff. But yeah, and also it seems like a pretty decent place for women in work and like non-legal restrictions. I thought their constitution. Oh, come on, Pedro, man. Victoria, Catherine the Great. Hashtag women in monarchies.
Ceremonial role at least, but now he wasn't even putting in that effort. This made the people furious. Before the war, he was seen as an enlightened scholar monarch, but now he was just some man who'd presided over 5 years of economically costly slaughter and couldn't be bothered to stay in the country he ruled. Republican parties, openly calling for the monarchy to be abolished and replaced with a republic like that of the United States, started flourishing, though Pedro did finally do one thing. In 1887, he privately backed a legislative move on abolition, then he sailed off to Europe for medical treatment. On May 13, 1888, it was Pedro's daughter Isabel who read the freshly ratified Golden Act from the balcony of the palace, a law freeing the remaining 700,000 people still enslaved in Brazil and abolishing the institution. Though it came far too late and only completed a process long in coming, this catalyzed the opposition. Rural plantation owners, infuriated by the Golden Act, threw their weight behind the Republicans as a form of revenge, and this combined faction lobbied several generals to stage a coup. Army leaders, angry about being devalued after the war as well as limits on their political speech, assented. When the coup came on November 15, 1889, it was a tawdry thing. Most citizens of Rio thought the troops marching toward the palace were part of a parade. Many, including the marshal leading them, thought they'd just arrest the prime minister. They went much farther. And by afternoon, they'd captured the government and declared a republic. Pedro II, true to...
And he was in Europe getting medical treatment. I swear he died, like, in 1888 or 1889. What? This is how the monarchy... So his daughter read out the Golden Act that's freed all the slaves. 700,000 in a country as big as Brazil. I thought it would be more people still enslaved, but obviously they've been building it incrementally with the Womb Act and things. That's mad. So there wasn't really much bloodshed.
Form wasn't there, staying at an imperial complex 40 miles away. When he returned, thinking at worst he'd lost a prime minister and some power, he was informed that A, the country was now the United States of Brazil, and B, his family would be sent into exile. And what was his response to this, you may ask? If it is so, it will be my retirement. I have worked too hard, and I am tired. I will go rest then. And early next morning, they hustled him onto a boat, not even allowing him to stop and hear mass first. The empire had begun when Pedro's grandfather boarded a ship and fled Lisbon for Brazil, and now it ended as he himself, surrounded by his most loyal courtiers, left Rio for exile in Europe. He'd die 2 years later in a Paris hotel.
With a 96% natural origin and biodegradable formula, try the new Listerine Naturals range.
Is HelloFresh worth the price? Absolutely.
Advertising this for me.
In the
I don't
beginning,
wanna
I was
buy
doubtful
it.
too.
Though the empire...
And that's it. That's the end of the Empire of Brazil. 67 years. So that's that's 1822 to 1889. Wow. Interesting. Let's keep watching. It looks like there's a little bit of the video left.
only lasted 67 years, a single lifetime. It was the most transformative period in Brazilian history. From a backwater colony with an economy based on slavery, a new nation had emerged. One that was modern and industrial, cosmopolitan and united, artistically vibrant, diverse, and free. A nation that still shapes the region today.
Very true, very true. Over half the population of the continent. That's mad, man. Oh my god, I can't believe this is it. I can't believe this series has ended. I was really enjoying this. That was good. I don't, to be honest, the foundation of like what I'm building this learning on is not that much. I don't really know that much about like Brazilian history, especially in this time. But if you are more familiar with it than I am, let me know if that was good, if that was true to the actual like events. But that's mad. Like, let's go from still, a colony to Napoleon chasing the royal family out of Lisbon, building up the economy, loads of immigration, slavery incrementally being abolished, wars with other powers, mediating great powers. Damn. That was really interesting. Kind of sad to get to the end of it now. But if you're still watching, thanks for watching, guys. Hopefully this Ukraine thing blows over, and if I'm still making videos in a week's time, then it's all good. But yeah, thank you.